Good morning, this is Robin Bieber on the product spread talk on the 24th of July at 8:05 in the morning London time. As a general overview, gas oil structure is wobbling and looks like it needs to dip a bit. Heating oil has hit its targets, therefore be careful. And RBOB is erratic. Now, if we just look at gas oil first, and the chart in front of us is all set gas oil. It's struggling at this minus 150 level. It hasn't closed above there yet. It's had 4 days trying to push above here and has now slid below the 5-day moving average around about minus 150, 175. Whilst below here, it looks vulnerable to a test of the 8-day moving average around about minus 2. And were that level, the 2 minus 2.25 level fail, where the 8 and 13s come in, it looks as if it's beginning to look heavy and as if we should head lower. No downside if we stay above or we get back above minus 150, whereupon we'd be looking at an attempt to get into backwardation. A worrying element of this is the bearishly diverging stochastic. This is a pretty reliable signal normally, and here we've got bearish divergence suggesting lower numbers. However, if we were back above minus 150, this stochastic would flip positive and negate those concerns. If we look at the SpreadTalk, it's tried to push above minus 450 for the last 3 days and has failed and pulled back to the 5-day moving average around minus 550, 575, which is exactly where we are now. If we fail there, we're going back to minus 650, or likely going back to minus 650, the 8-day moving average. A little bit of a struggle going on. Were it to weaken further now, that stochastic would turn negative and we'd have some bearish divergence here too, which suggests to me that the front end of gas oil structure, if it wobbles a bit more, is going to get some momentum to the downside, and one should be very careful. And that downside could easily take us back to 750 area, 8.25, something like that. Now the red deck has had 3 days testing its minus 24 level. It's breached it, closed over it 3 days ago, but is now back below and is also failing. It's a bit of a synthetic flat priced play, the red deck here, but it's below the 5-day moving average at around about minus 25.50, 25.75. And if it doesn't hold that, the odds are it runs back to minus 27.25, i.e. delivers some downside. It has no upside whilst below minus 24 and minus 22.75, this dangerous area up here. And it looks like it needs to calm down and test support, which would probably be the 8-day moving average around about minus 27.25, minus 27.50. It's struggling a little bit here, and this is manifested by being below the 5-day moving average. So say if it's below 25.50, it's in a little bit of trouble and wobbling, and lower numbers are likely. Now moving on to heating oil structure, the front ends did well. It hit its target, excuse me, to minus 73. Hasn't closed over there. This minus 73 level is important. If it moves over there, then look for a move into backwardation. Failing that, stay neutral. There's no downside whilst it's holding the 5-day moving average at minus 93, and it would only acquire serious downside on a move below minus 116 area, the 13-day moving average. Now the SpreadTalk, struggling a bit, has failed to punch higher. It's back below minus 384, and if it failed to hold the minus 412 13-day moving average, then we would see another 30-40 point move down to the 21-day at minus 442. It's looking challenged whilst it's below minus 384, and were this stochastic to flip negative on any further weakness, and it needs further weakness to do that, we'd have bearish divergence here too, so that's suggesting vulnerability. The red deck has failed over the last 3 days to seriously punch higher, despite being encouraged. It's now slipped below the 5-day moving average, coming in around minus 980. And whilst it's below minus 980, it's in trouble and should head for the minus 1022 level and maybe even lower. Being below the 5-day moving average suggests pressure. Back over the 5-day moving average would suggest a retest of the highs close to minus 900, which is where we've been for the last 3 days. But I suspect this contract needs to ebb and flow a bit and maybe soften a bit too. RBOB, the front org sep looks okay whilst it's over 210. It should make its way to 295, but were the flat price to seriously wobble, that would be questioned. It has no downside whilst it's above the 8-day moving average at 201. The SpreadTalk a bit of a struggle. It needs to get over the 34 day at 1138 to give it some upside to 1258 area. It must not close below the 8 day at 1090, or it's sliding down 30 points to the 55 day at 1060 area. And only a move and close below 1060 would give it some downside. It's a bit stuck here, so the view is neutral. Red Deck, a little bit of a struggle going on here. It's tried to push higher for the last 3 days, but it failed pretty much around the 13-day moving average. No upside whilst it's below the 34-day at minus 248. No downside while it holds the 55-day at minus 359. It's stuck in the middle. It's been moving sideways for 3 days. It's still got a positive stochastic, but be careful. It looks a little bit vulnerable, and that would only be really come to light if it was below the 55-day at minus 359. That's all for today, folks. Good luck, good trading, and bon appetit.